So, what's up, my peeps? Matrix Native here. And in today's video, well, before we get on with today's video, first, let's go over some comments. Second, let me tell you, I have decided to reopen the polls on Twitter for viewers' choice history and builds. So make sure that if you're not following me on Twitter, you go ahead, hit that link below in the comments, and follow me on Twitter and get your vote in. I'm going to be going through a couple of my past builds. I'm going to be getting some builds together off that, and I'm going to let you, my operators, decide what the next history and build would be. However, for today's build, operators on your feet, in today's build, I give you the Combat Engineers. It has been requested a couple of times, was requested again 2 days ago, and I decided, why the heck not? These hitters deserve their own history and build. So with that being said, let's get on with some history. Operators, take a seat. So a combat engineer, also called a field engineer, pioneer, or sapper in many other armies across the world. However, a sapper in the United States Department of Defense, United States military, is basically a tab you can get, and we will track on that later. However, a combat engineer is basically a soldier who performs a variety of construction and demolition tasks under combat conditions. The combat engineer's goals involve facilitating movement and support of friendly forces while impeding those of the enemy. Combat engineers build, repair, and maintain buildings, roads, and power supply. They employ explosives for construction and demolition projects and clear minefields using specialized vehicles. Such tasks typically include construction and breaching trenches, tank traps, and other fortifications, bunker constructions, bridge and road construction or destruction, laying or clearing landmines, and other physical work in the battlefield. Typically, a combat engineer is also trained as an infantryman, and a combat engineer units often have a secondary role as fighting as an infantryman. And again, I have a lot of respect for combat engineers, and really that's why they carry the Bravo in their MOS. Their military occupational skill would be that of 12 Bravo. Combat engineers are force multipliers and enhance the survival of other troops through the use and practice of camouflage, reconnaissance, communications, and other services. These include the constructions of roads, bridges, field fortifications, obstacles, and the construction and running of water points. In these roles, combat engineers use a wide variety of hand and power tools. They are also responsible for construction rigging, the use of explosives, and the carrying out of demolitions, obstacle clearance, and obstacle constructions, assault of fortifications, use of assault boats, say in water obstacle crossings, helipad construction, general construction, route reconnaissance, and road reconnaissance. Combat engineers also build communication installations and run water distribution points, carrying out water filtration and NBC, which is nuclear, biological, chemical, decontamination when necessary. All these roles and activities and technologies are divided into several areas of combat engineering. Mobility, improving the ability of one's own force to move around the battlefield. Combat engineers typically support this role through reduction of enemy obstacles, which include point and row minefields, anti-tank ditches, wire obstacles, concrete and metal anti-vehicle barriers, as well as India Echo Deltas. And we all know what that means. Don't want to say it or this bid ya could get struck. Mechanized combat engineer units also have armored vehicles capable of laying short bridges for limited gap crossings, clearing terrain obstacles, overcoming trenches and ditches, opening routes for armored fighting vehicles, construction, roads, and bridges are just a few of many responsibilities of a combat engineer. And let's not forget, they can also mix it up and get some themselves, carrying that Bravo designator. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm an expert on 12 Bravo combat engineer because I'm just not. However, I did see them on the road to Baghdad. You know, we saw the combat engineers out in front. Of course, they have to lead the spear. However, you do have scouts and other, forces out there trying to sneak a peek of actually what the enemies are doing as the combat infantry units are rolling up. Now, along with the shit ton of responsibilities that I've already stated that a combat engineer, basically a combat infantry engineer, has to overcome, one of the biggest things that they will be involved with is obviously obstacle breaching. Now, for obstacle breaching, basically the combat engineers use a variety of vehicles, explosive devices, and plastic explosives, including minefield breaching devices such as dozer blades, mine rollers, Bangalore torpedoes, anti-personnel obstacle breaching system, the mine clearing line charge, bomb disposal robots, explosives, mines, and bombs. I mean, these, you don't gotta wear a beret to be a hitter. And I gotta tell you, Combat Engineer Corps is, they're pretty high speed if you think about everything that they're responsible for. I mean, let's face it, when the Republican Guard pulls out, it's not like they don't leave mines. It's not like they don't blow up bridges to cause, holdups for the NATO forces or from, any other forces that are on that ass. And the combat engineers basically got to go out and clear that. And like I said, usually they're the tip of the spear leading brigades in to, get a lick themselves. So as stated, during the war in Afghanistan and the 2003 to 2011 Iraqi war, the U.S. Army tasked its combat engineers with route clearance missions designed to counter rising threats of India Echo Deltas. To increase the effectiveness of these units, EOD and mechanic teams are typically embedded with the combat engineer platoon. Due to the rising India Echo Delta threats, U.S. Army sends some combat engineers with rank of specialist or higher, so basically E4 or higher, to complete explosive ordnance clearance agent training to familiarize themselves with the different types of unexploded ordnance. So as stated, we're going to track on exactly what a sapper tab is in the United States military and basically what it means in other than United States military. So basically a sapper in the US, British, Indian, Canadian, Australian, and New Zealand armies is a soldier who has specialized combat engineering training. In the IDF, for instance, the Israeli Defense Force, a sapper is a military profession code denoting a combat engineer who has graduated from various levels of combat engineering training. So basically a Sapper 05 is a basic level sapper. Sapper 06 is a general level. Sapper 08 is a combat engineer commander's level, and so on and so forth. In the Canadian Army, it's a term for soldiers who have completed the basic combat engineering training. In the Portuguese Army, a sapper, an engineering sapper, is a soldier of the engineering branch that has specialized in the combat engineer training. So operators, let's go ahead and track on exactly how you get the sapper tab within the United States military. So the sapper tab is a military badge of the United States Army, which was authorized on 28 June 2004 by the Army Chief of Staff. To be awarded the sapper tab, a service member may or may not hold the military occupational specialty code, basically the MOS of 12 Bravo, designated as a combat engineer, but must have graduated from the sapper leader course, basically the SLC, down there at the U.S. Army Engineers School at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. The school basically falls under the 169th Engineer Battalion, 1st Engineer Brigade. The tab was approved retroactively to the graduates of the first SLC on June 14th, 1985. Again, the SLC being the Sapper Leadership Course. The Sapper Leader Course is a 28-day course designated to train joint service leaders in a small unit tactic, leadership skills, and tactics required to perform as part of a combined arms team. The course is open to enlisted soldiers in the grades of E4, E4P, so basically a specialist, or Specialist P, which the P designator is nothing but promotable, so you're about to be promoted to E5 Buck Sergeant in the Army, or E5 and above. Students can come from any combat or combat support branch of the service, but priority is given to engineers, cavalry, and infantry soldiers. So, who the fucking that? So, basically, Cav Scouts, infantry, and obviously engineers get the first crack at it. So the Sapper tab is one of the 4 permanent individual skill/marksmanship tabs authorized for wear by the U.S. Army in order of precedence on the uniform. They are the President's 100 tab, the Special Forces tab, the Ranger tab, and the Sapper tab. Only 3 may be worn at one time, not including the tabs that are part of the shoulder sleeve insignia, such as airborne or mountain. So basically, if you're triple tab and you go get your Sapper tab, or if you have 4 tabs, you're only authorized to wear 3, which I didn't even know that. That's news to me, and that's who. But I don't got to worry about it because I don't have a Sapper tab. Tracking on. So in overview, combat engineers primarily supervise, serve, or assist as members of a team when they are tackling rough terrain in combat situations. They provide their expertise in areas such as mobility, counter-mobility, survivability, and general engineering. Job duties, as stated, construct fighting positions, fixed floating bridges, obstacles, and defensive positions, place and detonate explosives, conduct operations that include route clearance of obstacles and rivers, prepare and install firing systems for demolitions and explosives, detect mines visually or with mine detectors. Basically, the job training for combat engineer requires 14 weeks of 1 station unit training, which includes basic combat training and advanced individual training. Part of this time is spent in the classroom and part in the field with on-the-job instructions. Helpful skills if you want to go down range as a combat engineer. Helpful skills would include ability to use hand and power tools, perform strenuous physical activities over long periods of time. Obviously, an interest in engineering would be really special, and obviously enjoy working outdoors. So with that being said, operators on your feet, let's get the fuck down range.